This video is brought to you by Brilliant. If you look at a graph of Microsoft's market capitalization since its IPO in 1986, you can see three distinct phases. The first, which we might call the Gates era, ran from the IPO until roughly 2000, when, under the stewardship of founder and CEO Bill Gates, Microsoft enjoyed steady, rapid growth, and its market cap rose to a peak of $600 billion in early 2000, making it the most valuable company in the world. Most of this growth is attributable to Microsoft's dominance in the PC space. By the end of the 90s, PCs were outselling Macs 10 to 1, and something like 90% of PCs were running a Microsoft operating system. Then, from 2001 until around 2014, there was a period of relative stagnation under then CEO Steve Ballmer, which we might call, you guessed it, the Ballmer era.
Developers.
Anyway, in this time, Microsoft's market cap falls steadily to a low of about $140 billion in 2009, 70% down from its peak. This is partly down to the Department of Justice's antitrust investigation into Microsoft's monopolistic practices, which ends in 2001 and is quickly followed by Gates' resignation and his replacement by Steve Ballmer. But it has as much to do with Microsoft's failure to compete in the smartphone market and its commercial over-reliance on one product, in Windows. And then from 2014 until now, there was another period of steady and pretty impressive growth, which we might call the Nadella era, after current CEO Satya Nadella. Nadella took over from Ballmer in 2014, when Microsoft's market cap was still nearly $300 billion short of its 2000 peak. In the 10 years he's been in charge, Microsoft has returned to its former glory. Its market cap has increased tenfold to about $3.2 trillion, and after an extraordinarily good 2023, the company earlier this year regained its title as the world's most valuable company. In this light, Microsoft's longevity is frankly phenomenal. Not only is it basically the only company in modern history to pull off this feat of returning to the top spot after 20 years, but also every other company vying for the top spot 20 years ago has since fallen out of contention. So in this video, we thought we'd take a look at why Microsoft is booming, and whether it can last. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So let's get straight into it. The most obvious reason for Microsoft's recent success is the ongoing AI boom. There's a lot of hype around AI at the moment, and for obvious reasons, and Microsoft has done a good job of capitalizing on it. Microsoft hasn't actually done much AI-related innovation itself, but it's used its enormous wealth to muscle in via a series of quasi-mergers with cutting-edge AI firms. The most well-known of these is Microsoft's $13 billion investment in Sam Altman's OpenAI, which allows Microsoft to use OpenAI's technology and requires that OpenAI's models and tools run on Microsoft's cloud computing business, Azure, in effect merging OpenAI's customer base with Microsoft's. But Microsoft has also recently penned similar, albeit smaller deals with Mistral, a French AI company, and G42, an Emirati AI company based in Abu Dhabi, and Microsoft has bought or invested in a total of at least 15 AI firms since Nadella took over. There's a certain pragmatism to this strategy, accepting that you might not actually be the best at innovating yourself and just getting other people to do it for you. And Microsoft's competitors, who've instead tried to do the innovation themselves, have struggled. Google's new search AI, for instance, apparently makes errors like advertising people add glue to their pizza, eat rocks, and that Obama was a Muslim. Similarly, despite its reputation as an invention machine, Google has made a cumulative loss of over $24 billion in its moonshot Other Bets business since 2018. The use of quasi-mergers instead of full mergers is also a pretty savvy move, intended to avoid scrutiny from antitrust regulators. Microsoft's deal with OpenAI, for instance, isn't a straightforward investment. Rather, Microsoft receives a non-controlling interest in OpenAI's for-profit subsidiary, which means Microsoft technically doesn't have any equity in OpenAI itself, something Nadella frequently points out to inquisitive regulators. Similarly, earlier this year, instead of actually buying the company out, Microsoft just recruited basically the entire workforce of Inflection AI, another cutting-edge AI firm, including its co-founder Mustafa Suleyman. Microsoft's wariness of antitrust stems not just from its experience in the 90s, when the DOJ nearly ordered Microsoft to split into two companies to demonopolize the PC market, but also from its more recent experience with Activision Blizzard, the gaming company that makes Call of Duty and Candy Crush. Microsoft announced its intention to buy Activision Blizzard for nearly $70 billion in January 2022, but regulators worried that this deal would basically give Microsoft a monopoly in the cloud gaming market. And by the end of the year, antitrust regulators in 16 jurisdictions, including the UK, the EU, and the US, had all launched investigations into the deal. The deal went ahead in the end, but only because Microsoft was able to speed it through before the Federal Trade Commission got its teeth into it. It was complicated by a defiant ruling from the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, which forced Microsoft to divest the cloud gaming rights of Activision Blizzard games to Ubisoft. Anyway, so far this strategy has apparently worked. Regulators are currently paying more attention to Microsoft's competitors, and it's telling that Nadella is hauled in front of Congress's antitrust committee less often than his opposite numbers at Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, and Facebook. Microsoft's successful AI bet isn't just a fluke either. Microsoft and Nadella have apparently learnt the lessons of the 2000s, when their fixation on Windows and PCs meant Microsoft failed to anticipate or exploit the big technological shifts of the era, including most notably the rise of the smartphone. Microsoft has since become a more agile business, notably more willing to diversify into modest technologies. In the late 2010s, for instance, Nadella reduced Microsoft's reliance on Windows by investing heavily in its cloud computing business Azure, to great success. In part because Microsoft has made it more difficult for Windows users to use other cloud systems, Microsoft's lucrative cloud computing business has steadily gained market share, helping take their overall profit margin from 29% in 2014 to nearly 45% today. More recently, Microsoft has started eyeing up the laptop market. Earlier this week, Microsoft launched the new Surface Pro, a new laptop with various AI features that, at least according to Nadella, finally beats the MacBook in various benchmark tests for stuff like performance, battery life, and app compatibility. All in all, Microsoft's success under Nadella seems mostly down to the fact that Microsoft has learnt the relevant lessons from its previous failures. Now, that's not to say that Microsoft is infallible. Like all big tech companies at the moment, it's vulnerable to the possibility that the AI boom might turn out to be a bubble, and its defensive quasi-monopolistic practices in the cloud computing space look eerily reminiscent of the Gates era. Similarly, its lack of native innovation, and therefore reliance on cutting-edge startups like OpenAI, obviously comes with risks, and there are tentative signs that regulators are wising up to the quasi-merger, as evidenced by the recent DOJ investigation into the American Airlines JetBlue alliance, despite it clearly being designed to minimize regulator scrutiny. Nonetheless, as things stand, things look pretty good for Microsoft, and its revival is one of the commercial world's best comeback stories. When making videos like this, we rely on tons of data analysis to interpret crucial economic data and understand political decisions. But this kind of analysis isn't just crucial for our jobs. As our world becomes more driven by AI and data, your job will likely require more analytical skills too. That's why we've been using Brilliant. Brilliant is the STEM learning platform which can teach you all the skills you'll need in an increasingly digital workplace. They've just introduced a whole collection of new programming and LLM courses, suitable for learners at any level, taking you through everything from learning Python to understanding the importance of training data. And Brilliant isn't just about memorization and lectures. Brilliant teaches you by doing, using active learning techniques to teach you the principles behind otherwise quite complex topics, and ensuring that you actually understand what's going on, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. All of Brilliant's courses are split into easy-to-digest chunks, meaning you can quickly and easily gain real knowledge in just a few minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time, replacing mindless scrolling on the bus or waiting for coffee with something stimulating and rewarding. To gain access to Brilliant for free for a full 30 days, head to brilliant.org/TLDR. or click the link in the description. That way you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know that you came from us, which really helps us out. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your support.